I'm sitting on a rooftop in Marrakesh, where I have been enjoying the most remarkable hospitality at the Marrakesh International Storytelling Festival. So I thought about one of the oldest stories we have about hospitality from ancient Greece. Nobody wrote it down in those times. It took a Latin poet, Ovid, to write it down in later years. In Turkey, in what is now Turkey, there was a region called Phrygia. It is now in central South Turkey. And once there was a mountain range and a village, quite a large village. And up the side of the hill lived an old man and an old woman, Philemon and Baucis. They were poor, but they were so happy. They loved one another very dearly and were faithful to the gods. But up on Mount Olympus, rumors had traveled to Zeus that the people in that valley were disobeying the very important rules of hospitality. Zeus decided to come down to the earth disguised as a beggar with his friend Hermes to find out if the rumors were true. When they arrived at this village, it was cold, it was dark, it was rainy, and these two gods disguised as beggars went from door to door, asking for shelter and a little bit of food and drink. And at 100 houses, they were rudely turned away. They carried on up the side of that hill, up, till they came to that humble little house of Baucis and Philemon. When they knocked on the door, they were beckoned in most warmly. Come in, come out of the cold. We don't have much, but we'll share what we have with you. Now, Baucis and Philemon grew vegetables. They had some vegetables. The only other thing precious to them was their goose, a remarkably good goose who guarded their little property. They invited the two gods disguised as beggars to sit on rough stools while Baucis went about preparing a soup, adding herbs and cooking it in the one pot over the tiny hearth. She entertained them with a few olives and a little bit of cheese, and she had a jug of wine. She poured the wine into each cup, and that was the end of the wine. That worried her, but what could she do? Then, when she looked at the jug again, she realized it was still full. She tried pouring it again into the wine cups, and it refilled instantly. And then she realized these were no ordinary beggars. These must be gods themselves from Mount Olympus. And she said to her husband, Philemon, go out in the garden, catch the goose and kill it, and I will roast it for our divine visitors. Out he went, started chasing the goose around the garden, and that goose somehow knew what its fate was to be. The goose ran round and round and round and back into the house and hid behind one of the beggars as if to seek shelter from some unpleasant fate. And then the two beggars smiled and were transformed into godly raiment and were themselves Zeus and Hermes. And Zeus said to Philemon, it is not necessary for you to kill your precious goose for our table. You are the only people we have found here who understand the rules of hospitality. Come with us now and we will show you something miraculous. They went outside the hut. They walked a little farther up the mountain, and when they looked down the hill, they could see the valley filling with water as all the residents drowned. And Zeus said, "So it is with people who do not respect the laws of hospitality. But you who have, we will grant you wishes." And Baucis said, "Well, I would like you to make us a small temple up here on the side of the mountain so that my husband and I can be the guardians of the temple and make our prayers to you every day." And Zeus said that could easily be done, and their own little house turned into a beautiful temple. Isn't there something else you would wish for? And Philemon thought, I so love Baucis. The hardest thing in the world for me to think is that she should stand and weep at my graveyard, and I could not bear to live if she died before I did. Could you arrange it so we both die at the very same instant? And the gods said, yes, we can. Baucis and Philemon looked after the temple for a number more years. And then one day, as Baucis was coming in from the garden toward the door, Philemon looked at her and he noticed that her feet had begun to grow into the ground. They began to become roots, and bark crept up her legs. And Philemon himself felt strange things happening to his own skin. And they knew the moment had come. They ran toward each other, embraced. And in that moment became an oak tree and a linden tree intertwined. For centuries and centuries and centuries, lovers who knew the story of Baucis and Philemon would come to that place and tie ribbons on the branches in honor of their love and their faith in Zeus and their belief in hospitality. The tree is gone now. Nobody knows exactly where it is, but at least we have the story.